How did you end up in New York City?
I'm from here.
Yeah.
I'm from the Lower East Side. I was born and raised there. Both my parents are transplants, like fell in love with New York. And I feel like that infused how I feel about New York, because New York is like probably the love of my life so far. And I think always will be. Like, I just see my entire life here. But yeah, I ended up in New York because I was born here and I love it. And my parents had me actually as a result of 9/11, which is sort of a crazy story. So in that way, I honestly feel like my life is very intrinsically linked to this city and like the energy of this city. So yeah, that's how I ended up and stayed here.
I know a little bit about the story, but I'd love for you to share it. What is the link between your birth and 9/11?
Basically, my mom and dad were single. They had dated for a couple years back in Montreal where they met, which is where my dad's from. And then my mom had moved back to New York. She's from Dublin. She had moved back to New York, and around like the 31 mark was like, I really want to have a baby. I really want to have a baby. But she wasn't with anyone, so she was like sort of put it off. And then 9/11 happened and she was in the city. And as you can imagine, I mean, everyone, especially in New York, thought the world was going to end and was like, oh my God, now or never. Like, now I have to have a baby. And for lack of a better image, she basically went through her phone book, like not a literal phone book, but was thinking like, okay, who of my exes, who that I've been with, do I want to have a baby with? In order just to raise me herself. Like, I'm 99% sure that was the plan going into this, going into having me. And she picked my dad and she called them up and she was like, we're all fleeing the city. Basically, we're going upstate because their friend had a house upstate. And she invited my dad and he came and she pitched him again, for lack of a better image and word. And he agreed to it and they had me, which is crazy. And I do feel like both the energy of my mom and dad adoring this city, basically doing everything they could to continue to live and stay here and be artists here. And also the fact that my life was sort of a direct reaction to something something catastrophic that happened to the city. And that also made New Yorkers be like, no, we love this city. Like, we're going to stay here and we're going to band together and recover from what just happened. And we're not going to be afraid to be in New York. We're going to be loving of one another. I do feel like energetically or otherwise that has carried through to me because I feel very attached to the city and very in love with the city.
Has your mom shared with you the story of what happened to her on that day, on 9/11?
Yes. And I know she's going to listen to this and I hope I'm right. But I believe that she was actually on her way to the airport in a cab and they hit traffic and they were going downtown, kept hitting traffic. And it was like, what's going on? Turned on the radio. And then she moved to the front seat of the cab and they were like listening, being like, oh my God, like what the fuck is going on, basically. And then she got out of the cab, ran home, and her and all her roommates just turned on the TV and were like watching it happen. But I think, or I suppose I assume when she was in the cab that they didn't know that one plane had just flown in to the towers. And at that point, they didn't know it was an attack and they didn't know, they thought maybe it was just a plane crash. And then obviously as the horror of that day sort of solidified, I think her and her friends were like, obviously very incredibly heartbroken and also incredibly terrified that like, as you would just think like, oh, they're just going to destroy New York. Like, we just have to get out of here, which is what they did. I believe that night, maybe if not the next day, went upstate. But yeah.
That's wild.
I believe that's what she was doing. I hope that's what she was doing and not someone else's story that I'm now remembering as hers. Because growing up in New York, so almost everyone's parents have 9/11 stories.
Sure.
So I feel like I have heard everyone's, but I think that is hers.
Fair enough. You talked about the love of New York and how that runs through, your parents to you. What is it about this place that you have loved?
I love so much about this place, but I love the people probably the most. I love being in a community of artists. I love feeling like everyone is like loud and a little crazy. Like I can't sleep without noise outside my window. I'd rather someone be yelling outside my window or playing like house music than it be pin silent. So like I love the noise. I love the people. I love that New York feels like a dream to me, like that someone dreamed up this city. Like, oh my God, and we're going to have restaurants in every corner and like crazy people everywhere and artists everywhere, and people are just going to be making it work. And it feels like everyone's dream is that much more. They wear it that much more on their sleeve because it's so what this place is supposed to be, I guess. And maybe I just think that because both my parents were artists and it was very much their dream to live and be in New York. But yeah, I would say the dream is probably what I love most.
The people being your favorite thing.
Yeah.
Are there qualities you have noticed? I think you alluded to this just a second ago, but of what it is about the people you find here that really resonates with you?
I think the people are like cockroaches. Like people love New York so much they won't die. Like they will not leave it. And I know that about my parents. I feel that way about myself. I feel that way about so many of my friends' parents. Like there are times where you're like, I fucking hate it here. Like it is loud. It is hot. It is like everyone is insane. Everything that I was just saying, like flip it on its head and suddenly it can be negative on a bad day. But the fact that like everyone just sort of gets back up and keeps going. And I also love how funny the people are and how open the people are. Like I work in service as a waitress, and like the amount of conversations I have with people on a daily basis where I'm like, you just told me your life story. I just told you mine. Like I feel like you're an adoptive parent at this point. And I think people hold their cards close to their chest in other places. And in New York, there's always this feeling of like, you could meet anyone here. Like, just tell them your story. You know what I mean?
And people can be themselves also, that people feel comfortable being themselves and sharing stories like that with complete strangers.
Yeah. I mean, I hope so. I certainly feel that way. I definitely come from a position of privilege and feeling like I am just able to be myself and like people are going to love me. Like, I've always felt that way, which is genuinely a huge credit to my parents because they loved me even though I was so loud. Like I literally spoke so loudly, I developed vocal nodules as a singer when I was like 18, which is insane. Like I was a loud, opinionated kid. Like I did not shut the fuck up. Like if I was parenting me, I would be like, girl. But I do feel like New York has been like such a soft landing place for a person like me. In to what you're saying, like in other places that really might not be the vibe.
I want to get into your art.
Yeah.
I know you're a musician. How do you make sense of that in your life trajectory? Was there an age where it became obvious to you this was something that resonated with you? What's that story?
I started guitar lessons when I was 7 because my dad was in a band when he was younger, grew up playing guitar, and was a rock critic for most of my childhood. So I grew up around music, going to shows and like being in the press booth with him and watching him like write down on a legal pad like how Katy Perry was doing. And I was a kid, so I was obsessed. And then my mom was a writer. And so it felt like writing was intrinsically part of me and like around me a lot. And then I started guitar lessons and I sort of had no drive. Like I didn't want to learn bar chords. I didn't want to learn how to sight read. Like my parents were certainly forcing me to do it. And then my guitar teacher was like, well, why don't you write songs? Like now you know cowboy chords. Like why don't you just write songs? And as soon as I did that, I was like, now I'm in love with this. And so I'm a good guitar player, but I would never call myself a guitar player, and I'm a great singer, but I wouldn't even necessarily call myself a singer. I would really call myself a songwriter. Like, I think it has a lot to do with writing. And my mom and I used to collaborate on songs when I was younger. So I started doing that, and I played at all my talent shows, and people were really complimentary and really like, oh my God, she really has something. And I think as a kid, you start to be, well, certainly your parents start to be like, okay, this is something you could consider doing. And I'm lucky that I have parents that didn't even really pressure me to go to college. Like the artist's lifestyle and way was readily available to me. So from a young age, I could picture being an artist and being a successful artist, and that wasn't something I had to hide. So I feel like then from the age of like 10 on, I was like, I want to be a singer. Like I want to be a successful singer-songwriter. And what that looked like then when I started like graduating high school was like, okay, are you going to study music in college, or are you going to waitress and make an album? And I was the most adamant I was going to college. Like I was like, my parents, my mom especially, is very like, college is an institution. Like it's great for some kids. It totally ruins other kids. You know what I mean? And like, she wasn't like on her knees praying down to the institution that is the American college system. And I was like, I'm going to college. Like, you're crazy. I need to go to college. I'm academic. I'm obsessed. And then COVID happened in my senior year of high school. And everything sort of stopped a little bit, or a lot, actually. And suddenly I feel like things were in slow motion enough for me to like look around and be like, what do I want? Like, am I going to take out a bunch of loans and study for a degree I know I'm not going to use and don't feel passionate about right now? Or am I going to waitress, get a waitressing job, make an album, perform all around the city, and see where I end up? And I can always go to college if I want. And that is the path I ended up taking. But to answer your question more directly, it became a goal of mine from a pretty young age, honestly. And I would say I'm sort of a jack of all trades, in the sense that I'm good at a lot and I'm passionate about a lot. So I think the largest battle for me has actually been like honing in on one thing. Because as soon as I started growing up more, it was like, wait, but I love interior design and I love fashion and I love writing and I love... But I think I've also had a more recent renaissance where it's like, I'm 23, I can love and do all of those things right now. I don't even have to chain myself to the idea of like, I'm going to be a successful singer-songwriter. I want to be a successful artist. And I want a lot of that to have to do with music. But I think that morphs and changes.
Now that it's years out from the decision not to go to college, which is very rare, the pressure in this country for people to go and follow the path of going to university is, in my experience, extremely intense. How do you view that decision of yours at that time to go your own way?
I'm really proud of myself, honestly. Like, I don't regret it at all. And I've had moments in more recent years where I've considered going to college, for example, for interior design. Like, the thought has crossed my brain, oh, I would love to do interior design. Should I go to college for that? Like, maybe now it's time to... It's never been strong enough for me to genuinely pursue something like that, because I think genuinely you can do so many things DIY, and it doesn't come naturally to me to want to go to college, I discovered. And even my passion for academia, like I still read all the time and I write all the time, and I loved school. Like the funny thing is I adored school, but when it came down to it, I'm really, in hindsight, I'm very proud of myself for listening to the voice in me that was like actually a little scared to make that call, because it's like, oh God, what if all my friends graduate? And this is the year that's happened, like 22, 23. all my friends who went to college have graduated and moved back. And I think when I made that decision, one of my biggest thoughts was like, what if that happens? And I'm like, fuck, y'all got a degree. Like, what the fuck did I just do? And I really don't feel that way at all. Like, I feel like I've lived so much life, and I've seen a lot of my friends and acquaintances really struggle with like post-grad and acclimating into adult life. And because I didn't go to college, I feel like that happened for me. Like, I moved out of my mom's apartment. I got a full-time waitressing job. I made an album. I spent money on that album. I put that album out. I started performing. Like, all of that weirdness of like your early 20s where it's like, what the fuck am I doing? In many ways, I feel sort of a stride ahead of my peers who went to college, who are now in the world that I've been in for a while, especially the artists. Like, I have friends who went to college to be doctors or work in the corporate world, and it's like, yeah, I mean, I'm not doing that, you know, and I certainly couldn't do that. But I feel really proud of myself, and no regrets, genuinely no regrets.
So I'd love to hear the story about how you hit the ground running when you made that decision to not go to college. You mentioned that you already made an album. What did you do when all your friends are going off to college and you're committing to this life in the world of art and music? What did you do? What kind of habits did you create? How did you make that real for yourself?
It started bad, honestly. I made the decision and then everyone moved away. And actually my best friend and I were going to go to college in London together. So I made like a pretty big decision to not go with her, to stay in New York. So my best friend left the city. Pretty much most people I knew left the city. And in the October, November range is sort of when I started to be like, oh, wow, this is like my life now. Like, at the time, I was waitressing 6 days a week, and I was very sucked into that lifestyle. I wasn't writing much. I had decided not to go to college with this goal of writing an album, and then 2 months in, I was sort of like, I don't feel very passionate. I'm obsessed with like everyone I work with. And then 2 things happened. I broke my foot, so I couldn't waitress. And I was diagnosed with nodes. So I couldn't really sing either. And I had to do 3 weeks of full-on silence, like not a word spoken, in order to start the process of healing my voice, which I happily have done and learned a lot about it in the meantime, or all throughout that process. But both those things happened, and it felt like the universe was being like, do you want this? Do you want to be an artist? Because you're going to have to heal your voice and you're going to have to get yourself off the waitressing floor. Because especially when you're 18, 19, you're hooking up with the bartender, you're partying. It's like, oh my God, this is all I ever need to do. You know, like, wait, this is the best. I don't need to go to college. I just need to waitress. And then I broke my foot and I couldn't do it. And also this reality sort of set in, which is like, I have ambitions far beyond that. And it's the easy thing to be like, I love this. And I would never say I didn't like waitressing. I adore waitressing and I love the people I meet, but it is not where I want to be. You know, in my 30s, it's not where I want to be in my late 20s. And I really just do it to support my art. But I had to get there and I had to really want it and spend 2 months healing my foot and not waitressing and spend upwards of a year healing my voice to realize like I am really passionate about this thing and I really want this and I see this for myself and I have to decentralize waitressing in order for art to become the sole goal. And so that was sort of the first year of not going to college. And then I went through a breakup with the bartender, the waitress and the bartender. And that summer, I wrote a song for an hour every single day and I wrote my album. And I had so much to write about and it felt so cathartic. And it felt like, okay, wait, this is what was supposed to happen. And yeah, I feel like that's how, and now 4 years away from that place, I waitress 4 days a week in order to make enough money to spend all the rest of my time on, well, I made that album, but now like making an EP, which is what I'm doing right now, making music videos for that EP, building a world around it. Like that switch really happened in that period. And I was able to create such a life around my art and such a happiness in my life that like I am so protective of that now. And yeah, that's how I got there.
What is your album about?
My album is a breakup album, I would say. It's called Mine. It is my first album, so I would say more than just the breakup comes through. Like, there are parts that are a little funny because I think I'm funny. I have a good sense of humor. I hate, like, being self-flagellating. Is that the word?
Self-congratulatory?
Self-congratulatory. Okay, what I just said, I'm like, is not what I meant. But I hate being self-congratulatory, but I am trying to be better at it. So parts of the album are funny. Like, it feels like a stupid answer, but it's very me, and that's why I called it Mine. Like, it is so wholly mine. I made it with my own hands. I wrote it with my own hands. A lot of it, I mentioned New York so much in it. I mentioned the subway stop we broke up around, like the street I grew up on, things he said to me when we were breaking up. Like it was basically just what I was thinking about then. And I think I'm now writing this EP, and I've released like 4 or 5 songs between that album and this EP. And now that I'm not as focused on a breakup as like the material, I feel like I'm going back a lot into my childhood and into like genuinely who I am and how I see the world. But I feel like I had to get that whole thing out before I went back to writing about myself.
You said you've done some performing as well. I'd love for somebody that might be listening to this who doesn't live here or does live here and wants to create a way for them to find venues in which they can share their music. How did you go about doing that, and what suggestions would you have?
I would say your email and your phone is your best friend. Like, you have to badger people, genuinely. You have to see an artist you like on YouTube and DM them and be like, I'd love to open for you. You have to bike around New York and look at venues and email them with videos of you performing, your songs linked, how old you are, what you do, what you want to do. Email them. When they don't respond in a week, hey, just following up on this. When they don't respond in 2 weeks, pick up the phone, call them. Like, you have to be very involved and you have to want it a lot, I would say. But I don't think it's that hard to perform in New York once you break that barrier. I remember thinking, this is the hardest thing in the world. How am I ever going to book something? And then I played my first show outside of like being a high school student and going to music school. And like all my friends and my family and people came, and I was like, oh, okay, I can keep doing this. And I met musicians through that. And then like you email them and are like, do you want to be on a bill? And there are also specific venues that I love and would recommend. But I got to throw this show in December, which is sort of part of something I'm working on as like a full-on endeavor. But I threw the show in December at a record store in Red Hook. And this just happened because I was walking by with my best friend. My best friend and I go to Red Hook every summer for like a day, and we thrift and have lobster rolls. And we walked by and we really hit it off with the guy, and he sold me this record where this girl, it's called Garden in the City, and she's the singer of like, I got a brand new pair of roller skates, but that was her only hit, and she covers one of my favorite Bob Dylan songs on the record. So like totally hit it off with him. We're like, that space is so cool. And then like in December of that year, I was like, I want to throw a show that feels like Nashville, that like doesn't feel New York, like super cozy, $5 at the door. People bring a record and you'll swap at the end. Like songwriters will try their new stuff. And like, we had a girl perform who like burst into tears in the middle of a song
Whoa.
that she like just wrote about a breakup. And that feels like the essence of what the show was, because it was like orange lighting, records everywhere. People brought their records and were meeting people and chatting and exchanging things. And I was playing new songs that I'd never played. And she was playing this super emotional song and she cried, and like the room totally held her. And like, it's been a journey, but I feel really happy with getting to the point where I get to throw shows that feel very me and aren't just like, next up we have Lark, LePage, which is great too. But yeah, I would say like Badger, be annoying, like is my advice.
What have you found, if anything, tends to work in creating those opportunities? Either in the language you use, the type of venues you go after. This is especially a question for beginners, people who are just trying to get something going.
Open mics will be your best friend in terms of like finding your stage presence, kicking stage fright if you have it, and also like meeting other musicians. And then once you meet those other musicians, it's really all about networking, as it is in so many ways. But like, oh, what's your Instagram? Like, I'd love to put you on a bill. Or like, oh, you're throwing a show, I'd love to be on that bill. Like, making friends. I really recommend Pete's Candy Store. They have an open mic that is just sort of cult followed. It's on Sundays. I used to do it all the time.
Is that in Williamsburg?
It's in Williamsburg.
Yeah.
I used to do it all the time. And you go at 3 p.m., you sign up. It's always a massive line to sign up. The room is always packed, full of other performers and also just people watching. And I think my third time there, I met a girl that was like, we throw a monthly show, we'd love to put you on the bill. And that goes to show, like, I was doing that before I was throwing my own shows, and like in 3 times I'd made a connection with someone who like wanted to put me on a bill. And then at her show, I met someone who I now put on like every bill I play, basically. So I would say that. And in terms of language, be yourself. Like, I like go into places as well. And I'm like, oh, I'd love to play here. I throw these shows. Like, would you guys be down? I'd say like in terms of language, like be professional, but also be yourself. Like, they get a ton of emails. I think it's the people who like seem the most passionate about it, at least in my experience, that they're actually interested in, because genuinely 9 times out of 10, I mean, I've had bad experiences, but 9 times out of 10, people who run music venues are interested in musicians and are interested in people who have a vision and like want to do something in their space. Of course, like being a girl doing the arts, like I've had a door guy like try and take all my money before, like, and literally genuinely just because I was a woman. Basically, he collected all our money. We made like $320. And at the end of the night, it was a huge success. And I want to get the money so I can keep some of it for myself, but also so that I can pay all of my musicians. And I go to the door guy and he's like, oh, I gave the money to a girl in a skirt. And I was like, who? And he was like, the girl in a skirt that performed. And I was like, okay, well, there's only one girl in a skirt who performed. So I call her and she's like, no, he didn't give me anything. And I don't like to distrust people, but something in my head did click. And I was like, are you sure you gave it to her? Like, why didn't you give it to me? I organized the show. Anyway, he's blaming me and being like, you gotta be on top of this. You need to tell me to give it to you. Like, sort of yelling at me. I get intimidated. I go back down to my boyfriend and he was like, no, he has the money. And my boyfriend goes up to him and goes like, we know you have the money and we want it, takes it out of his pocket and gives it to him. And it's like, wow. Like, if he wasn't there, I genuinely might not have gotten that money because I was really intimidated. Like, it's an owner of a venue. Also, funnily enough, a venue I love to play. The owner of a venue who's looking at you and intimidating you and telling you. So there's also ways in which I think you have to be scrappy and you really have to stand up for yourself and have a good head on your shoulders and not bend as much, especially as a girl, because I've also had like sound guys who are assholes, like, and are just, and also 9 times out of 10 have had amazing experiences with sound guys, but I've also had many where it's like guys who, just because I'm a girl, think like, you don't know how to work your guitar, you don't know how to work a pickup, like, are you sure it's even plugged in? And just genuine comments where I'm like, how dare you, sort of. So you have to want it and have a good head on your shoulders.
You mentioned Pete's Candy Shop.
Yeah.
What are the other great venues for aspiring beginning musicians in the city that you recommend?
Berlin under A, which is on Avenue A and 2nd Street, is amazing. Really just such a cozy venue. I like Bowery Electric as well. Rockwood is a classic and amazing.
Where is that?
Rockwood is in the Lower East Side. And it's, I think they just closed the stage that a lot of really new performers performed at. Because they have like 3 stages, 2 of which are much larger than one of them. But there's one that like is a free stage, like you can't charge an entry fee. But it's an amazing space. 360 Record Shop, the place in Red Hook, is probably my favorite place I've ever thrown a show. That might be if you really want more of your own night. I would say those are a good place to start. Yeah.
Who are your favorite musicians?
Oh my God. I should have thought of this before. I swear I like blank every time. My all-time great is Bob Dylan. I like grew up on him and I know every album, every word. And my dad and I would drive up to Montreal a lot and it would just be 7 hours of Dylan, like
wow.
me in my car seat. And I was obsessed. And actually the first track on my first album is an audio recording of me when I'm 2 reciting Subterranean Homesick Blues like bar for bar and singing it because he feels like such a part of where I came from and he influences my music a lot, I would say. Him is like an all-time great. As a young girl, Taylor Swift, watching her perform with a guitar and doing that myself was like, oh my God, I can do what she's doing. Like, we're doing the same thing. That is crazy and amazing and so inspiring. So she inspired me a lot. And also, like, no one writes a breakup album like her. No. I rest my case. I love Lana Del Rey. I love, like, Nina Simone. I love Lorde. I'm a fan of people. Like, I listen to albums at least 4 times when they come out before I form an opinion on them. And even if I don't love them, once you've listened to something 4 times, you have some sort of an affinity for it. Like, you understand it. So, oh God, I love U2. I love the Fontaines. There's a lot of Irishness in that. I love Sam Fender. I love Justin Bieber recently. Like, I loved his album Swag, which is sort of a wild card from me. I love Jay-Z. I love Beyonce. I love, like, pop. I love folk. Those are sort of my two mains. In his heyday, I mean, I adored Kanye West. I'm not, like, standing with him right now, but I think, like, he is definitely one of the greats. Yeah, I guess start there, Blondie. I'm like, start there. I won't stop talking.
With Bob Dylan, as somebody who has never really gone deep into his music, but I know he's an iconic musician, what is it about him that makes so many people love him? Would you say it's primarily the lyrics, his message? How would you describe for your dad, for yourself, why he resonates so much, why he's at the top of the list?
The lyrics, certainly, and the humanness. Like, it's not like he's hitting a riff that's like, holy shit. But it's like, he is saying everything he's thinking in the most, like, simple but also mind-bending riddles that actually just mean the simplest of things when you really sit down and listen, oftentimes, and in my favorite songs. And there's something about his voice and his cadence and his lyrics and the way he delivers them. It's like, he's so intelligent, but he's such a person and you get to hear all his thoughts, and it feels like such a privilege to hear how someone else thinks, because it does reflect, I think, more than you might think as someone who doesn't listen to them often or him often. It does reflect the human experience more than one might think.
I don't know if any songs come to mind, but if you had to point a Dylan novice towards a few songs, I don't know if you have favorites, but I'd love to know where you would recommend people go to begin to sample him.
I would recommend going to Highway 61 as an album because it's fun, and it's like, it's fun. It's sort of melodic as he gets. It's sort of like circusy, and it's very like narrative driven. Like each song feels like a story. That's the one I connected to the most as a kid. And you can go deeper into it and see the meaning in a lot of it, but you can also listen to it and honestly have a great time and sing along and like listen to someone telling you a story, basically. And then I would say Blonde on Blonde is my all-time favorite. Visions of Johanna is a great song to
These
start
are albums
with.
or songs?
Albums, Blonde on Blonde and Highway 61. Songs, Visions of Johanna, which is off Blonde on Blonde. Queen Jane from Highway 61. Highway 61, the song. I feel like there's one I'm really forgetting. Oh, Subterranean Homesick Blues. And also To Ramona.
That's great.
Yeah.
I want to talk a little bit about the business of music right now. And I know you have an income stream where I'm assuming most or all of your bills are being taken care of by your part-time work. As you look at your future, I don't know how much you've thought about this, but what are the avenues right now for a young aspiring musician to potentially make money from their art?
Great question. I think there are a lot of ways to make money from your art, and it depends what your ambitions are. To my ambitions, I would say gaining enough of a following that hometown shows become lucrative, and that like even the idea of like charging $40 for a ticket and having a band play behind me is sort of the current goal. That like I would be touring and also playing hometown shows that would make me enough money to just live that lifestyle. I think it can't be ignored that TikTok is a massive avenue for income when it comes to musicians. Not necessarily that you're making money on the app, but that you're finding a fan base there. I've seen it happen for a lot of people I know. And I think I was sort of like always a little like stuck my nose up at that and was like, well, I'm going to do it the organic way. And I don't feel like I've found my thing on TikTok that makes it not feel cringe and not feel like something that's deeply unnatural for me to do. But I've certainly broken the barrier of being like, I think it's really important to put yourself out there and post a video of you singing just so it's like, I want to do this. Like, people in my life know I want to do this. People who can follow me know I want to do this and can see me doing it and can see me trying and caring. And maybe a larger fan base comes from that. But I would say that in terms of like finding a lucrative way to do music, that it's really about putting yourself out there and building a fan base and building also like a world, like I was saying, around the EP. Like literally just this morning, I was shooting for a music video for a song off the EP called Being Alice, which is very Alice in Wonderland themed. But it's like we've built this whole world around like Alice outside of Wonderland, and that being an allegory for what it feels like to be a girl outside of like your teenage years and becoming a young woman and becoming no longer like the object of everyone's interest anymore. I think building a world is really important because people want a world. People want to buy into a world, and people are going to spend money on tickets to a tour that is a world, you know? So I think what I'm working on most now is making the music really good and building a world. And I really want to go on tour. I've never been on a tour. I would really love to open for someone. I would really love to go on my own tour. And not that touring is like the most lucrative thing in the world, but I would say it's like a way to survive as an artist.
If I'm understanding you correctly, am I right that your advice typically would be step one is to build a fan base, and step two would be leverage that fan base to try to make money with public performances?
Yes.
Does that seem about right?
Yeah, that's what I would say from where I'm sitting, it looks like. It's also, I'm probably thinking that because that's what I enjoy the most about it is performance. Obviously, it would be amazing, too, to, like, sell a record to a massive label and yada, yada, yada. And that's not my ambition. But I feel like growing up with the parents I did, and also waitressing now and being in a friend group that is basically solely artists, the route I see most clearly for myself involves like slow, steady growth towards a lifestyle that I can provide for myself solely through my art.
The way in which you build that audience, and maybe it is, you've already answered this, that the best way to do that is social media, is TikTok, is some other platforms for all of their flaws and addictiveness and insanity. I guess I should just ask you directly, what do you think the best way is for an aspiring musician to build a legitimate audience today? I mean, historically, if you didn't have a connection with a label, I would imagine that was getting in front of as many people as you could, and organic growth. But with a leveraged technological opportunity, I'm sure a lot of musicians are going down this new path. What would be your suggestion?
I mean, if I knew the key to it, I would tell. I would say that is definitely the $1 million question. It's like how to get people to care and not just care enough to listen, to keep listening, to follow, to go to shows. And I've seen like my boyfriend's in a band who has a following, and even he talks about, and he's like steps ahead of where I am, but even he talks about like that's the gap you have to bridge. Like, it's easy for someone to watch a video of you or listen to a song on their phone, but to get someone to come out to a show and to get someone to like continue to listen to your music, I would definitely say is sort of the $1 million question. I think I'm very skeptical about social media. Like, I'm not like TikTok is the way, you know? But I don't think it's not, you know? It is a massive, massive way to get yourself in front of people and get yourself to care. And I've discovered about myself that I feel really good and I feel really accomplished when I post a video of me singing or something I made, because it feels like what I was saying earlier, I'm being like, hello world, this is what I want to do, you know? And I think we need to get over cringe. I mean, I am like not over cringe, but I'm trying to be. And then also I think performing. I think going to open mics and putting yourself out there, putting bills together, like you never know what's going to do it, but like constantly showing up isn't going to hurt you.
Yeah. I'm sure you've thought a decent amount about this, but at this point in your career, you just use the word cringe. How have you thought about how you can balance your integrity as an artist with the incentives of platforms like TikTok and Instagram? This is like the perpetual modern question, I think, for artists in general, who would rather be doing their art probably live or recording music than catering so much of their time and energy to these platforms. How do you think about that?
It is hard. It's like, I would say it was hard for me because I am someone who wants to laugh all the time and someone who wants to be funny and sort of be like the court jester all the time and like, look at me, I'm one big joke. And then it's like, it was really hard to stitch that outward version of myself with a deeply sincere want to be an artist and a deeply sincere want for people to like what I'm making and like what I'm making that isn't very funny. Like, it's quite serious, you know, it's songwriting and it's a breakup album and it's like singing and it feels very vulnerable. And there's this comedian, Jacqueline Novak, who has this joke. I'm not going to tell it well, but this idea of the two clowns, and like as a funny person, you always want to be two clowns. Like, one clown is like making a fool of themselves and the other clown is being like, get a load of this guy. You know, like, he's such an idiot. Like, you want to be on both sides so you can't embarrass yourself. And I think I've had to get over being like, some people might not like this. Some people might think it's cringe. Some people I know might open TikTok and see me earnestly singing to the camera, and that's okay, you know? And also, like, I'm never going to be the queen that's like, wait, stop scrolling. Like, I'm not making videos like that. I think there's a way to find a way to do it to your own personality. And honestly, I don't know if I've totally found that, but I think for me, it is sort of being myself and being okay with being earnest.
I know how partial you are to New York, but for Americans, what is the best city in the country for budding, aspiring musicians to live in your mind? And why?
New York or Nashville? I had never been to Nashville, and a year ago I went, and I've traveled a lot. I'd never had this experience before where I was like, oh, wow, I want to move here. Like, I touched down in New York and didn't want to be back in New York. And that has never happened to me. And I would say in Nashville, there is a sense of community that I don't think we have in New York. I think we can tend to be, I will speak for the music community, but we can tend to be very competitive rather than like being in Nashville. It was like, I played a show with my friend Emma, and it was a house show, and she literally posted about it 2 hours before the show. And in my head, I'm thinking, like, if this was New York, no one would show up because everyone's going somewhere already tonight. Everyone is going to see Dua Lipa at MSG or, like, going to see their friends play or going to drinks. And she posted, and 60 people showed up and just wanted to see new musicians play music because that is also their social scene. Yeah. They see someone on Monday and it's like, what did you do? Oh my God, I saw this. I went to this amazing house show. And I think that's because it's so much smaller than here.
Yeah.
And for that reason, it was like 3 of the people there had opened for each other on tour or were about to go and open for another person on tour. And I think there's something to be said for how community-driven and grassroots Nashville is. And also, like, I felt at home there, and I'd met her once before I went and like stayed in Nashville for 3 days and like spent 3 days with her and threw the show with her. They like are with open arms in a way that in New York, I've been met with more like people who want to do their own thing or people who are all constantly comparing themselves. And I think there's an amazing network in New York and there is an amazing community in New York, but it's just not as community driven as I maybe would like. I don't think I would ever move currently, but I'm certainly thinking about spending a lot more time down there and potentially writing an album and then going there for 3 months to record it, sort of thing.
If you had a friend who did not live in either New York or Nashville and was you, they were trying to begin their career in music and make a go of it, make it launch. Which city, if you were not rooted here, do you think you would point that individual to in terms of where to live?
God, it is hard. I want to say Nashville.
Really?
I do. I don't know if I'm sure I would feel different if I grew up there or if my trip hadn't been like 3 days of pure bliss, basically. But I I think I would say Nashville because you're so held there. And I think you have to be sort of tough in New York in a way that isn't always the nicest feeling, you know?
Yeah.
And like you said, I have so many ties here. I can't imagine not being here. And I would also completely recommend New York. Like, there are opportunities I don't think I would have gotten anywhere else. And there are people I've met who work in the industry, like genuinely just friends of mine who like work at labels. And that feels so cool and accessible to someone who lives in New York. But I do want to say Nashville.
And that would be regardless of the kind of musician that you are, or is that really specific for pop and country music?
I would say folk, pop, and country for Nashville. I mean, I don't know, because that's the scene I'm in. But like at this show that I played, like this boy got up and was like, "Who wants to duet this Dylan song with me?" And it's like, oh my God, am I in heaven? Like, I know all the words to that. I know how to play it. And we can do this together. You know what I mean? And I feel like I've always had, my boyfriend is always like, you just need to meet people and jam with them. And I'm like, who are the people I'm jamming with? Like, where are they? Where is this jam? And then I got to Nashville and I was like, oh, here's the jam. Like, I'm suddenly don't have this barrier of cringe there. So yeah, I would say like for folk and pop and country.
Last question I want to ask you is about success. I always like to end these conversations with a conversation about that word and idea. As you think into your future and what you want to do with your life and career, specifically for your career in music, what does that word mean to you, and what does success look like in your mind at this point?
Success? Oh my God. I feel like my mind goes to two different places. I would say success is happiness to me. I am someone who I feel very lucky to have been happy for a lot of my life and have happy be a dominant emotion that I experience. And for that reason, I think I'm very driven to preserve that. And happiness is intrinsically linked to being able to go out to dinner and talk shit with my friends, like Cal was saying. It's intrinsically linked to feeling like I have music to release and that I'm on a stage. And I mean, when I'm on a stage, I'm like, I'm obsessed. Like, I never want to get down. It's like the happiest I am. So I think success looks like my music making me happy, and my lifestyle maintaining my happiness. And I also think it looks like, in a more concrete sense, I think it looks like being able to support myself financially from my music. In a very literal way, that's what I'm striving for. I've always been curious about fame and had a sort of fascination with fame, but it's not something I desire for myself. I think my view of success very much comes down to leading the life that I want to lead and the life that makes me happy, and using art to support that. Yeah. But yeah, I want to keep being happy. And I think I've been pretty good at it thus far. So fingers crossed.
Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you.